Hello everyone, welcome to the Daily Sip. My name is Oliver and my mission is to bring you closer to organic Japanese green tea, and today we're gonna dive into tea number 5 of our mega green tea sampler. So 26 different teas which you have in here, and today is matcha time. So what I will do today is that I'm taking a matcha and let's see what we can get. I have here the Matcha Seisui. So this is a tea which is coming from the region of Wazuka, so it's next to Kyoto, around the birthplace of Japanese green tea, and this tea is from Mr. Nakai, and Mr. Nakai's father was actually the founder or one of the founder of the JAS, so the Japanese Association organic tea label. So he's at the birthplace, in the birth family, you might say, of Japanese organic tea, which is quite a young phenomenon. Organic isn't seen that kind of special in Japan because the Japanese people, they say our food is good, so we don't need it Japan, we need it organic, but still organic is on the rise, not only thanks to the West, which is demanding more of organic Japanese green tea, but also internally, slowly the young people are picking up on the organic and why organic is better for the nature and the planet, and that's why organic pressure is also coming from the inside of the country, but we have to admit at a much lower level. When we look at Japan, only 2%, or it is said only 2% of all the organic or the tea fields are actually organic, but this is improving year after year. This number is a little bit older, so it could be maybe already at 3, but we agree it is quite a low number. When we talk about this matcha is actually coming from the tea cultivar Yabukita. Yabukita is, you might have seen this in the other video when I talked about the Chamosume, which is also a Yabukita but a Gyokuro. And this tea, or this tea varietal, is actually the most spread in Japan. Around 80% of all the harvest in Japan is done with Yabukita, 95% even in Shizuoka, which is the biggest tea region and the closest to Kyoto and the closest also to colder climate. And what Yabukita was able to is, on the one hand, satisfy the Japanese consumer needs of a good, very, very broad tasting, or kind of bringing a broad taste spectrum with it. Meanwhile, the farmers were less damaged by the frost bites of the cold spring nights. So Yabukita was a plant which was fulfilling this very much. So it was kind of a perfect symbiosis between what the consumer or what the Japanese tea drinker wanted and what the farmer needed. And that's why Yabukita invented in the mid of the last century, so in the mid 900. So this tea actually was also a crossbreed, and what it is nice about, especially when you're going into the matcha field, that you have a strong, a strong grassiness of this tea. So you have more of this vegetal, a little bit spinachy, stronger spinachy note, but still there's a nice smoothness and nice sweetness to it. Though some of you might not like Yabukita too much, because there's still a kind of a fresher, citrusy and a little bit of an astringent note with it. But let's go and dive directly into this tea. I have here 2 grams, so we have a sample pack and it contains 2 grams. So I'm just gonna pour it on the plate that you can see. And the color you can see as well, very beautiful, nice green. So this is important when you're buying high-grade green tea. It always has a little bit of this stronger green tea. Some teas, they can be a little bit more in the olive spectrum, and this one is quite green and intense and bright, with a slight touch of a lighter green. So Yabukita is known to have a little bit of a lighter color. If you want to go for more intense dark green, there the Samidori, for example, so the Samidori varietal could be something. This tea has a little bit less of theanine, has a little bit less this intense green color, and it leaves a little bit space of these fresher tones, which I was mentioning before. So when we're going into the matcha land, so what you definitely need is a bowl. So you can buy matcha bowls. This is now a matcha bowl. Very simple, nothing fancy. So you can see it here. So there I have a quite a nice kind of a drawing here, but otherwise it's a normal bowl. So you can absolutely use a normal bowl. What is good about matcha when you have a look at it, so you have a little bit more of space on the lower part. In the West, our bowls, they rise up a little bit faster, a little bit steeper, but here the matcha bowls are explicitly done that you have more space for the whisk. And then to get a nice foamy matcha, because with the Chosen, which is the matcha whisk, there you can actually do a very nice foamy texture of the tea, which gives it an additional layer, an additional experience in terms of taste. So here you have a typical Chosen, so it's made out of one piece of bamboo. Often when you're looking for a Chosen, try to go above 60 kind of small hairs, which you have here with the Chosen. So as more that you have, then the more kind of the whisk is easier and the foamier also your matcha gets. Try to get a bigger one with around 100. This is always good. 80 is also still good, but as soon as you go below 80, then you don't have the same effect. What is important is that this matcha tea whisk can break over time. And to avoid the breaking, what you can do actually is to soak it into water. So what I did, you might see it's a little bit wet. What I did, I just soaked it for some minutes. It's enough if you do it 2 to 3 minutes. I did it now 10 minutes, just when I prepared everything for the matcha, then I just soaked it into the water. And this makes the hair finer, so you can even bend these a little bit. When they are dry, they break quite easily. So to avoid the breaking, just soak it into water and you will have a Chosen, so a matcha tea whisk, for a much longer time. Good. So this is number 2. Then we have the Chasaku. So it's just a matcha spoon done actually. So I circumvented this now, but normally when you have a matcha tin, you can just go in and take out all the matcha off the bag. So you can see I could reach some more. Just gonna put it here. So it's nicely done that you can go into kind of small containers and then you can just go in and out without touching anything. So much more convenient than a normal teaspoon that we are using. It might be a gimmick. For some people, they really like to have this one here. It's quite cheap to buy. So this is something you can add on, but you can also use a normal teaspoon. Then very important, a sifter. Why you use the sifter? The sifter is finally to break the small crumbles off the tea. So you see with the time, or when you have an open package, especially this one is a new one, that's why it's quite fine. So I wouldn't need too much of a sifter. But when you have the matcha open, what is just normal is that the Japanese green tea, or the green tea in general, soaks up a little bit of the humidity. And what it just makes it a little bit more crumblier, a little bit. You can have smaller pieces of kind of stick together matcha in your water. If you sift it, you're gonna break this up again, and then your matcha will be as fine as in the first day when you opened it. So what I recommend you all the time, even if you have a new and fresh matcha, just try to sift it. And this is what I'm going to do here. So I will just drop these 2 grams, and then I'm gonna show it to you here. So you're gonna just sift it through slowly until everything. So at the moment I still have the matcha there, and you just sift it through until all the matcha is used. So if you wonder how much matcha this is actually a little bit more than a half a teaspoon. So if you have a tin at home or some matcha at home, just use a half a teaspoon, maybe a little bit more, and then you get around this quantity. So you can see it's very fine now. It's even falling and then moving around in in my bowl. So it's a very, very fine matcha. So what I will do is now to add water. I preheated this now for 70 degrees Celsius, which is around 165 Fahrenheit. So this is more or less the temperature level I'm using here. Also with the matcha, if you want to bring out a little bit more the sweetness, you can also lower the temperature to 140 Fahrenheit, 60 degrees Celsius. It just, it's out of my experience that when you're playing around with the temperature, you see a little bit what brings each temperature out, but it is kind of a common rule, the lower the temperature, the sweeter the matcha. This is also why this kind of the cold matcha, so you can absolutely also do this with cold water, and then the matcha is the sweetest. In this case, I have my preheated water here on the 70 degrees Celsius, 165 Fahrenheit. And I will add around 70 milliliters, so around 2 to 3 ounces of water. Around 3 ounces is normal, and then I just gonna whisk it. So just do W forms, move your whisk nice and smoothly. Or as my surf instructor always said, smooth like butter, so no kind of force applied. Just very, very smooth. So voila, and you see everything is done, and we're gonna just, you can drink it then directly like this. So when you do a tea ceremony, always show the beautiful part of the tea bowl to the person you're drinking with. If you're alone, you can maybe also do it with a mirror, but normally you just move forward the beautiful part of your tea bowl that the person who is enjoying the matcha with you can see the beautiful part of the bowl. But for you, I'm gonna show you now the matcha so that you have that we can have a look at it. So what you can see is, so I didn't do it perfectly. You can see there's still a little bit of rest, so I should have whisked a little bit better. But in general, you can see here, this is the beautiful foam, which is now, or which has been created now through using the matcha whisks. So it will give me a little bit more of a taste texture of kind of a smooth creaminess. But let's hop into the taste. So immediately when I drink Yabukita, what is especially with matcha very, very kind of strong is this first spinachy, grassy taste profile. What is always coming with it, this was what I mentioned before, is that you always have a little bit of a citrusy, a little bit of an astringent taste profile. If you're not liking this, it might be that the Yabukita is not something for you. Or what you also can do is when you're doing a Yabukita matcha, then you have a nice grassy flavor profile and you can easily use it for a matcha latte. This is a perfect tea or perfect matcha, which is very, very well suited for a matcha latte, because often the plant-based milk, so don't use regular milk because the casein in the milk hinders a little bit the polyphenols, so the good things in the green tea. So try to use plant-based milk, almond milk, rice milk. You can also use oat milk. I'm a big fan of oat milk. Mix it, and often the Yabukita has exactly this strong vegetable flavor, and then it gets the best through, or kind of this vegetable flavor gets then its best kind of or its strongest way in a matcha latte with the Yabukita. That's what, out of my experience, that some finer matchas which are a little bit less strong in taste and are a little bit less, also a little bit sweeter, but they are very fine in their taste profile, and often the milk covers then this fineness and this small kind of very subtle notes of the matcha. But with the Yabukita, as it is quite strong and quite well kind of developed in this more spinachy, a little bit more greener tones, it suits very well for your matcha latte. So very, very nice matcha, just to hop maybe into the matcha world and then expand a little bit your palate around matcha and to see what is actually a little bit the taste profile you prefer. Do you like it when it is a little bit fresher like this one, or are you looking more for a little bit of a sweeter matcha? But what is really nice is that you have a really beautiful, kind of a smooth, creamy note with it as soon as you whisk it well. And I get a lot of edamame out of this, the flavor profile. So it's a little bit spinachy, it's a little bit grassy, greener, but then it moves also into more of an edamame, nearly a little bit of a creamy side. So it's quite a complex and quite a broad spectrum. And in the end, I always have the tingling on top of the tongue of this light astringent note, which comes with this matcha. So this was this. Very nice in the end as well, more creamy, so I have a little bit of more foam, so it's even creamier, it's even smoother. The stringency seems a little bit lower when I get just the foam mixed with the matcha. And it has a very beautiful sweet note, and then in the end you always have this mix up with this more astringent side of the tea. So quite a broad spectrum. So we're going from very vegetal spinachy, we go a little bit to creamy, edamame flavor profile. We have some sweetness right at the kind of consecutive flavor experience or flavor section, and then in the end you get this slight astringency, so a little bit of citrusy, a little bit refreshing note. But Japanese people like this very much about Yapokita because it gives them a little bit the feeling that this tea is healthy, because the stringency is a sign of a lot of catechins, which are more the astringent particles in the green tea, and then they give a little bit more the citrusy and refreshing note. So this was this matcha number 1 of my matcha mega sampler, of my mega sampler green tea mega sampler review. I hope you like this one here. Then if you want to leave a comment or tell me anything which you're missing in our videos or in my videos, I'll be happy to cover this. And as always, please leave a comment. I will try to answer all your comments, and see you next time. Thank you for watching. See you and bye bye.